everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Purpose and Profit Sisterhood podcast. Today, I am here with the fabulous one and only Aleasha Bahr. Sorry, did I pronounce that right?
Bahr, yes.
Keep forgetting to check that, and I really should every time, but I keep forgetting. And she's here with us from beautiful Colorado, which is why you have a nice warm sweater on, right? Because it's not so very nice and warm there right now.
I mean, it's sunny, but not warm. Yeah.
Yes, yes, there we go. So today we're going to be talking about one of the things that you all love to hate and hate to love. So we're going to be talking about sales. Oh, I almost got you to spit up there. That was good. But first, before we launch into the topic of selling based on fit, the black sheep sales method, and how you too can create more revenue in your business and serve more people by selling more effectively, I'm going to tell you about Aleasha and give you the, official bio. Then we're going to find out the juicy tidbits behind the scene. All right. So Aleasha is a woman in a male-dominated industry who's calling out the common lies perpetuated in sales. Primarily, the lie that you have to do things that feel weird to win sales and experience hundreds of reps and rejections before you can be good at sales. The truth is, nothing is one size fits all, especially not something as dynamic and unpredictable as sales. She loves giving people a refreshing alternative, the black sheep sales method, because if it's a fit, it's a fact, and there's no selling involved. She enjoys giving people the permission to lean into their personal strengths instead of acting like someone else, which is so awesome. In her experience, it always sells more. All right. I love the authentic approach to this, and we're going to find out what that means and how you do that, especially the part about if it's a fit, it's a fact, and there's no selling involved. I love that line. So welcome. I'm glad you're here, Aleasha.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeanette. I'm very excited to be here.
And so now we got all that official stuff, out of the way. Tell us something about you people would never guess, even including your best friends.
Even including best friends, that's a kind of hard one.
What's something that we wouldn't guess about you?
I mean, I think that a lot of people wouldn't guess that I do sketch comedy sometimes.
Oh, that's very interesting. I did not know that. Or maybe if I did, I don't remember if I knew that. All right, that's very cool. Do you do it like kind of professionally on the side or just a hobby?
Just for fun on, on the side. I am thinking about, I mean, I've been thinking about it for years, so we'll see when it happens. But there's plenty of sketch that could be done about sales.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So when you say sketch, are you talking about pre-scripted or are you talking about improv?
Pre-scripted. I mean, yeah, like there's a concept of ahead of time.
Cool.
Maybe not like exact word for word, but
Very cool. That's very fun. All right. And so tell us about your journey. How did you get to be in the business you're in right now, including why does it matter to you so much?
Yeah. So, I was always like a natural in sales when I was at corporate. And, whenever you ask somebody who's just good at sales naturally what they do, they say, well, I don't really sell. And you're like, well, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So over the past 5 years, I have really dialed in the exact formula for that. And what's become most passionate for me lately is really encouraging people to own what makes them different and weird and not listen to mainstream pressure. Because, when I was doing my thing, selling naturally, and when any natural salesperson is doing their thing, there's always an expert or a mainstream person telling them that they need to do it differently. Mm-hmm. And it really shouldn't matter, because as long as you're getting results, I don't know why they care. Mm-hmm. But this is the thing with mainstream in any industry, life, religion, whatever. If you have a different idea or you approach things differently, people really don't like it. And it's actually how things progress and move forward and are innovated. And so I really want to celebrate all the people who somebody tells them that's mainstream that they're too much, too direct, too honest, too loud, too quiet, too nerdy, too whatever, and say, give me more of it. Be more of that thing, because it's what the world needs to evolve.
Yeah.
And it's important for you to show up and let your weird hang out, really.
Amen, sister. I love that. And I think that is great advice, not just for sales, but for every aspect of life in general. This is about being you, letting your unique freak flag fly, and letting it be the source of your strength instead of some kind of detraction that people tell, that people may say, oh, you need to tone that down. Oh, no, let's turn the volume up on it. So let's get real practical about that. What does that mean in terms of how that would look? So let's say I'm any one of my number of clients that are reluctant because they don't want to be pushy and they're very kind and very, they don't want to be too intrusive or anything like that. How can they turn up the volume on that?
Yeah. So the people who feel like that are actually better suited for sales. So the approach that I've like given words to and a formula to that's based on the people who sell like a natural is if it's a fit, it's a fact and there's no selling involved. So you really want to be clear on the criteria for who is a fit and who is not a fit because not everybody's a fit and there needs to be criteria that is deeper than you have to have a working credit card
Yeah.
or be coachable or whatever. There needs to be deeper things like you have a staff or you've already done your branding or you have an offer or you've been in business a certain amount of time or, those kinds of criteria. And then whenever you match somebody up with that and say, okay, these are your goals, these are your expectations from me, this is what you're looking for, this is what you already have. Okay, yeah, I can get you those results. That's what we do in that timeline. Like, let's do this. It
Mm.
really becomes very easy to just transition into the sale because it's just a fact that their expectations and what they have in place and the timeline that they need those expectations and goals met
Mhm.
line up with you. It's just, there's no really convincing about it. It's just a fit.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. And so how did you come up with the black sheep sales method?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was really based on when I was, selling at corporate. And so when people say, oh, I don't really sell, the reason they say that is that they're letting someone know when this isn't the solution for them. Like they're like, actually, you need something different from this. I would go here and I would do this first.
Mm.
Or you don't need this thing, it's too expensive and you don't need all the bells and whistles that come with it. You'll get this middle thing or whatever. And so they think that leads them to say that they're not selling, but
Mm.
that's what's going to be being transparent like that is going to establish trust more than anything else. And someone is going to, sales cannot happen without trust. They
Right.
have to trust you. So they'll come back or they'll refer someone because they know that you're not going to sell somebody something that they don't need, that's not in their best interests.
Yeah. I once had an experience with a prospect and the woman so needed what I had, perfect fit for the Wings Academy, and really wanted help, was really, really exhausted. And basically, she was a yes. And I said no because you're too tired right now. She was too tired to actually do it and get value from it. And as much as I wanted that sale right then, it was like, no, because she's just not going to be able to get ROI from it because she needs to rest. And so I said no to her and she broke down in tears and said, I, I couldn't tell if I wanted a yes or a no, but I am so relieved. And so that you got to really be honest with people and not just like you said, take anyone who's got a credit card. I think that's a big issue in our expertpreneur industry. And so, yeah, I could get on all sorts of soapboxes about that. As you know, there's lots
Yeah.
of people who sell you lots of things that are probably not appropriate for you or at this time or stage of business. So talk a little bit more about why you love sales. Why and what's your why? Why do you do this work?
I mean, the why is definitely to the world is a better place when people can think differently and be loud and stand in their strengths that are different. So maybe, the outfit that someone's wearing is really extreme. right? There's a woman that I love. I'm thinking about doing these black sheep sales spotlights on people who like unapologetically show up. And she's like Betsy Johnson personified, right? Like, and I'm like, you know what? I would never wear that, but I love that you are wearing it. And it inspires me to show up the way that I want to in a different way.
Yeah.
So I really feel like when everybody just is honest with themselves about what aligns with them and what's in integrity for them, it inspires everybody else to do the same. And then that's how innovation and genius happens, because what you're doing sparks an idea for something that would be a fit for me that I can adjust and do. And the world keeps on spinning instead of us just hiding whatever everybody thinks is too weird or dangerous or scary or unusual or whatever. So I really dream of it being like this big black sheep party where everyone is showing up so bright and it makes everyone else brighter.
Oh, what a beautiful line. I love that. Everyone is showing up so bright. It makes everyone else brighter. That's a really, really cool concept. So you are obviously very passionate about creating a revolution of black sheep and everybody really stepping into who they are individually. And I think you're just using smoke or, sales as your, little lead kind of way to get people to listen to you about just in every area of your life. Show up bold, show up bold, show up bright, be you. I love it. So why sales? Why is that so important to you?
Yeah, so it's funny that you say that sales is like the method for me to do this, because it's kind of like this other message was always part of my message, but nobody wants to hear anything more about sales.
Yeah.
And every sales expert says that they're different, and they're not. I'm actually very different. So what drives me to, I mean, I love sales because I love communication and like it's the art of words, basically, online and offline. And my superpower is that I've been blessed with is hearing in paragraphs what somebody does and giving it back to them in one sentence.
Mm,
And so I have like that natural superpower,
yeah.
but also I really like helping the business owner who is selling their own service, because they're not a salesperson. So none of this bullshit out there really feels good to them.
Yeah.
And there's not really a lot of other options. So when I can show up and say, hey, it's not a numbers game unless you treat people like numbers. And actually, you should never feel uncomfortable in a sales conversation. And you can convert someone from the first call. You don't need hundreds of rejections to build resilience or whatever misconceptions that people are always perpetuating. I love to offer that relief to people. And
Mm,
then when I can give them what they do in one sentence that everyone can understand, I really love the confidence that it gives somebody to talk about themselves and what they do.
yeah, love that. So what are some of the things that you teach people around sales? Because a lot of what you're talking about is the traditional types of things that are often misconceptions. So what are some of the skills or techniques or things that you teach?
Yeah. So, I mean, I do everything in a custom way. So I will understand someone's offer inside and out and then create a strategy around it, which is always going to have better results than a sales expert saying, well, this is how you should approach sales,
Mhm.
because that's what worked for them. And it's not necessarily going to work for someone else who has a different background or even gender or
Mm,
personality or audience or service. So that makes a huge difference. But also, I make it extremely conversational. So, when you come from the frame of if it's a fit, it's a fact, every part of the conversation, including before the sales conversation, is about fit. So it makes it really like low pressure,
mm,
basically. And it's also how to navigate when someone gives you a weird curveball or asks a weird question. You can always go back to that, right? So I do these, I lay out a framework that's custom to somebody's stuff. And then there's weekly calls where they role play to get those softer skills, which is like someone threw me a curveball. How do I handle that? Here's
right.
the objections point of the call. And they're the buyer and the seller. They try both. And we're able to stop and say, hey, how do you feel right now? Do you feel like this person's selling you? Do you feel like you trust them? And that's not something that you can do in a sales conversation. So it's really valuable for dialing in and making it kind of like muscle memory in the sales conversation. And generally speaking, I do something called pitch weaving. So throughout the conversation, instead of the typical format, which is an interrogation of Q&A, 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 and then this pitch where one person talks, instead, it's just a conversational exchange the entire time. And it takes a lot of the heavy lifting off of the end of the sales conversation. Because when somebody's just talking by themselves for an extended period of time, people aren't like leaning in and, hanging on every word. They're like tuning out and waiting for their turn.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot. I hope that there's a lot that's different, but hopefully that gives like a basic understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different approach. And so, talk a little bit more about objections, because you mentioned objections, and a standard objection handling model is here's the objection, here's the answer, or at best, here's the way to think about it and kind of go deeper with people. Um, Even when you've established that this is a good fit, people still habitually tend to have objections that come up. So how do you frame that, and how do you tell people to think about objections?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, whenever I put together a custom sales framework for somebody, I understand what the typical objections are, and we're going to address those right up front in the conversation. A lot of people are like, don't put objections in their mind. But if you're just going to pretend that objections don't exist, it doesn't mean that they don't exist. It just means you're not talking about them and you're leaving them for the end of the conversation when everybody's tired and no one has energy for that. So you want to ask the question that's going to uncover, like, if time is an issue, how much time do you have to invest in this up front? And somebody tells you the amount of time and you're like, that's more than enough time. Or you tell them what is enough time.
Right.
So that's an example. But if there's objections at the end, because you're right, everybody just gets scared before they invest. They're like, but what if I'm wrong?
Mhm.
What if I'm an exception? What if this doesn't work for me? What if there's a question that I didn't ask that's important to ask or whatever? And so when somebody brings up an objection, the typical way of addressing it is to quote unquote overcome it.
Mhm.
And it just feels like somebody's dismissing and invalidating your concern
Mhm.
when you do that. It's like, this seems a little too technical for me. Well, it's really not, because we break it down in these easy steps and videos and their support. And it's like, you didn't even hear me. You did exactly what I expected to, which is to tell me that my concern is not a concern.
Right.
And instead treat it as if it would be a
Mhm.
concern and explore it with them. Well, what do you feel comfortable with when it comes to technology?
Mhm.
Which element is causing you to feel like it's too technical for you? And talk it through, because 95% of the time, people just don't have clarity or are confused or are making assumptions or whatever. So when you're able to really discuss it from the frame of, I want to make sure that this is a fit for you. So this thing you're raising could make you not a fit. Let's figure out if that's the case. And if it's not, then great, we can still move forward.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a brilliant way to frame it, and because so much about sales is the grounding that we have about it, where we're coming from, how we think of it. It's less about the technique and the words and the tools and more about what's our frame of reference on it. Are we thinking we're manipulating someone, or are we thinking we're here to serve? And how do we just get some clarity so they can get a clear yes or no? So, what do you do with people who have all sorts of concerns around the value they're providing? So really they're not very confident about what they're offering because they're not very confident about themselves.
Yeah. So that's something where like where I was speaking to being able to give them that insight, and it empowers them with that confidence. Um, you know, something is valuable about you. You probably don't have the words to say it so that the other person realizes it too. And there's not really like a quick fix for that. But I would say if you are somebody who actually cares about your client results, that's already very valuable, because a lot of people don't. They're really good at selling and they do not care about fulfillment. And that alone is important. And usually the thing that is really valuable and different about you is something that you don't think is very cool because it's easy for you.
Yeah.
So they call it an unconscious competency.
Mhm.
So usually people are like tripping themselves up thinking that they have to like do some outrageous thing that is difficult for them in order to be of value to the other person, when really you just need to do what comes easy to you, because just because it comes easy to you does not mean it comes easy to everybody else.
Exactly. And the key word there is competency. You've got some competency, even if it's an easy, unconscious thing for you. And that's what they want to buy, is that solution. So talk a little bit more about how you see the role of the person who is doing the sale. What what's a good way for them to think of themselves at that point when they're making the transition from, you know, finding out more about this person, being curious, etc., to, okay, now I'm going to, it's a good fit. I'm going to talk to them about buying my product or service, because that's where a lot of them get hinky. So how do you,
Yeah.
what do you suggest they think of, focus on, see that as, rather than, oh my God,
So
I'm going to sell.
I have a very different approach to this because obviously I'm a black sheep. A lot of people want you to say, okay, well, would you like to hear about how we can do that for you? I don't really like doing that because I feel like it's yeah, that's why I'm here. I know we know what a sales call is. I'm here to learn about what you can do. I don't think you need to ask. And when you do, it's like, now I'm going to pitch you.
Yeah.
So somebody's like immediately got their guard up. Instead, I personally like to transition into the sale by saying, okay, great. I don't see any red flags here like XYZ. And you say the things that are the red flags so that people can say, oh, yeah, that's not me, and choose in. And then, explain the thing that's really different about you, and then talk about the result that you bring. So when you're talking about how do they feel valuable, it's really about the result. What does somebody get from working with you? It's not a bunch of meetings. It's not healing. It's not the service itself. It's the result of the healing. It's the result of the audit. It's the result of whatever.
Mhm.
So you're going to talk about the result. And if you're thinking about a frame of mind, I always like to ask questions during the explanation of services too. That's something that I help people with. Like, what's a question that's going to help somebody reflect on the thing that you just said
Mhm.
and therefore remember it? And y'all can have a real conversation about it instead of one person just talking the entire time. So, like, for example, we do an in-depth brand analysis that's going to look at your tone of voice, your audience, your results, your vibe, your have you ever done an analysis on that level before? Can I ask a question and talk it through, right? So I really liked, as far as the mindset, to think of it as a guide. You're guiding them to the best solution in their best interest. So when you ask, have you ever done a brand analysis like that? And they're like, I have. It didn't really work. Okay, well, let's talk about that. What was the process? What were the things, the tangible items that you ended up with? And like, let's explore that proactively so that I know if I'm guiding you in the right direction or not. So just that place of genuine curiosity and openness to not being a fit for the other person. So there's this metaphor I've been playing with that people have been saying lands. We're like, you're going dress shopping with your friend and you have a favorite dress, right? One that you like better out of the two options she's choosing from. But she's like, this one, it's like, less expensive, but it's kind of busty. And this other one, it might be like too fancy. What are you going to do? Are you going to push the option that you like the most? No. You're going to ask questions. Well, are you going to be dancing? Who's there? Is there someone you want to meet? What is the outcome you want from the event? And you're going to guide them to the best solution in their best interest. And the sales conversation is really the same. You're not pushing your solution unless it's the right fit.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And so in terms of understanding fit, do you have suggestions? Because you mentioned don't have it be an interrogation. And the standard kind of approach is, where are they at now? Where do they want to go? What's the gap and what's missing in the middle? And that tends to be series of questions and so forth. And I do this myself. What's an alternative to that? What's another way to do that without it, and have it be more conversational and less interrogation?
Yeah, so pitch weaving is what's really going to take the pressure off of that section being so Q&A. So like if you ask a question about like, well, what have you done before to solve this and how did that go? And they're like, well, I worked with a marketing agency and they put some stuff together, but I ended up with just a deck that was all about like my brand voice and stuff, and nobody was implementing it. And then you're able to offer some empathy and an insight. So some feedback on their answer. Yeah, that's really frustrating and something that we hear a lot. Not that that work isn't valuable, but if you need somebody to actually implement, then it's not going to feel valuable. So it makes a big difference when you have that conversation ahead of time and you can have somebody on your staff that can be trained to implement, or perhaps somebody on the team will implement.
Right,
So you're like giving a little bit of expert insight into what happened and what went wrong. And so the natural implication is that I can do that for you.
right. Yeah, got it. And so what about people who have all sorts of concerns and considerations? I just met with a client a couple days ago who has all sorts of stuff around scarcity and money issues. And so, of course, she attracts lots of people with scarcity and money issues. What would you say to those people?
Yeah, that's really, really hard. When you're talking about fit, I usually tell someone if they're in a place of scarcity and fear that it's not going to work. Like I can't take them on as a client because it's like there's a lot of desperation around it and they end up becoming very demanding and freaked out
Yeah.
and can't properly like implement. So it's like a mindset thing and I'm not a mindset coach.
Mhm. Yes.
I got like two moves and I'm out. Like you got to see a mindset. I don't know what to do about that, but like if this structure isn't enough to give you confidence in it, like I don't, I can't.
I love that you're in your lane, you know your lane, and you don't try and be all things to all people. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. And I'm out. Okay, so what is one of the big mistakes you see a lot of people making, especially a lot of women entrepreneurs, when it comes to sales and thinking about sales?
Yeah. So they're either trying to act like an aggressive white man because that's the only structure that's out there and is available, or they are really undermining themselves in the sale by saying things like, I think this could be a good option for you. Or maybe, or it's kind of what that. So all these things are really softening your expertise. And not that you need to pretend anything. You can just say, well, in my experience, this is what I see.
Mhm.
Instead of I think that. It's not an opinion. It's based on data. It's based on experience. And that's something you want to communicate to the other person.
Yes.
So the women often are like kind of, I think it's because to other women, we relate and we like kind of lower ourselves and make ourselves smaller. And men communicate by one-upping each other. Women usually don't like it when we one-up. So I think we're trying to make ourselves more approachable with that language, but it just sounds like really unsure.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Things like just and little and those kinds of qualifier words. Yeah, it's not helpful and it undermines that expertise. And what do you think is one of the biggest strengths that women have when it comes to sales and selling?
Ooh, women are always better at sales. People trust them more by nature. Um, they are more empathetic and they're better at listening. So, I mean, there's a lot of data out there that shows that people will buy when you listen and you have empathy and you personalize things to them. And women, for whatever reason, are naturally, because of society or because of biology, I don't know, better at that.
Right. Yep, I agree wholeheartedly. And really, truly, people are looking for help. They're looking for support. They're looking for solutions. They're looking for things that will make their life better. And when we get all weird about withholding ourselves and our solutions, then we're depriving them of that. And that's just mean. Like they get to say yes or no. They're big people. So let them decide. So tell us a little bit about your resource that you're providing for everybody. So you've got an ebook that's available for them. So tell us about that and how they can get it.
Yeah. So it's 5 steps to winning your next sale with the Black Sheep sales method. And it really breaks down the different phases of the conversation and how to approach them in a way that doesn't feel pushy and aggressive. So, yeah, they link to little podcast episodes that I have that explain in depth the approach so that you can implement each layer.
I love it. Okay, I think I put the wrong one up first, but I've got the right one up now. Okay, there we go. That's awesome. So it's there, and you can go to, so tell us your website and how people can find you and contact you.
Yeah, so it's www.aleashabahr.com, and Aleasha Bahr is spelled real weird. Do I need to spell it out, or are you gonna like? Okay, okay, it's Aleashabahr. So it's phonetic. It's how it sounds. Aleash. Leash with an A on the front and an A on the back, and bar with an H in it. And yeah, if this was helpful to you or resonated with you, then I would say, what would it be worth if it was specific to you? And if that sounds like it would be valuable, then please let me know. And I have a sales level up call.
All right. I like that. And I like the clarity of the direct ask and and the question of if this feels like it would be helpful for you to be specific, then let's have a sales level up call. Brilliant way of making it nice and clean and clear. It's a sales call and it's an invitation if it resonates. So love the example. And so her ebook that you can grab, or the 5-step guide, is at sales.aleashabahr.com/welcome black sheep. I love that you're making room for black sheep in the world. I think that's a great thing. What's one last piece of advice or information you'd like to give everyone before we wrap up here?
I would say that please don't let feeling weird about sales stop you from mastering it, because if you're someone who really cares about your clients, you are doing someone a disservice by not selling them, because they will be sold by someone else and then burned. Don't do that to good people. We've all been there.
Yes, absolutely. Amen. Hallelujah. Whoop, whoop, and all of that. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, please do subscribe, like, and provide some feedback. If you've got questions, put it into the show notes, either on YouTube or on our podcast channels, or here in the Purpose and Profit Sisterhood Facebook group. If you've got questions, tag Aleasha and put your questions in there, and she will get back to you with her wisdom and her unique perspective. I love the contrarian perspective. It's a little sad that it's contrarian, but it's
I
because
know, right?
common sense, but
It is.
it is quite contrary to most of the standard models that are out there, because it's common sense, and that's not a lot of what we find out there. So that's really, really great. Thank you so much for taking time to be here, and thank you for being a stand for especially women to show up more powerfully. And I really got to find another word besides authentically, because it's so overused, but more authentically in everything they do, including their sales. Love it. Thank you. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Be bold, be bodacious, and most importantly, be the special kind of weird that is only you.
Yeah.
Bye for now, everybody. Take care.